Alright, y'all. What's going on? It's Black Balloon. And I'm coming back with another video, so y'all already know what's going on. Alright. Look, I'm not gonna make this too long. I didn't really wanna, do a whole little talk with this video. This was kind of like a continuation of the video that I posted a few days ago with Naomi Wolf. The video that was titled Naomi Wolf Exposes, I think it was like fake news. I forget what I put the title as. But basically this was a continuation of that video, and it goes a little bit deeper into Operation Mockingbird. Basically where, where the CIA manipulated media and the news to basically serve their agendas. Rather, they were putting out entirely fake stories, or rather they were making up events that happened overseas in other countries. Basically they talk about it all throughout this video on how the CIA basically does what they want in the media to serve a certain agenda, to paint you a certain picture, to get across things that they want to get across. We know the CIA works internationally, so it's a lot bigger than just the United States. The things that goes on behind the curtains, we could only imagine. And, from this video, you'll see that it's been going on since the 60s and the 50s, and possibly before that. Long before any of us was born. And yeah, so I just thought it would be cool to kind of dig into Operation Mockingbird. I saw a lot of y'all comment about that when I dropped that video of Naomi Wolf. So I figured this would be perfect timing to dig in it a little bit more, so we could kind of, I guess, get a little bit more knowledgeable, about the media and what actually goes on when it comes to this fake news stuff and all of these false flag events that we get. We'll be able to recognize it, and we could just stop paying attention to the bullshit at the end of the day. Stop giving it your time. Stop giving it your energy, because 90% of this shit is fake. And it's just that simple. So anyways, man, I thought this would be a pretty dope video to do, bring to the channel. Operation Mockingbird. And y'all already know what's going on, man. So look, I'm not gonna keep this talk that long. We'll just let the video speak for itself. With that being said, I hope y'all enjoying y'all week. I appreciate every last one of y'all, especially y'all support. Whether you know it or not, y'all keep me going. Y'all give me hella motivation to keep dropping these videos. And that's just what we're gonna do. So with that being said, it's Black Balloon, and I'm gonna see y'all soon. I'm out.
I thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. Now we're looking at that very carefully.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks.
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
I think it was entirely in order for our correspondents at that time to make use of CIA agent chiefs of station and other members of the executive staff of CIA as sources of information which were useful in their assessments of world conditions.
Would you say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations of the period of the 1970s, it seems to me that a reporter's got to be much more circumspect in doing it now, or he runs the risk of at least being looked at with considerable disfavor by the public. I think you've got to be much more careful about it.
Town, Massachusetts. Dan, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for having me on this morning. One thing I realized at a young age with politics in this country is that you can't really listen to what people say. It's a lot of nonsense in there. You have to look at actions. What actually happened? And I think if people kind of put their personal feelings behind and just focused on what happens, we'd be a lot better off. I feel there's a lot of personal hatred to Trump, which to me just falls in the category of hatred. You have to look at what has happened. Let's do a little comparison of our last two presidents and how they started off. Trump is out of the atmosphere as far as how well he's doing compared to the last two presidents, if you look at things side by side. That's one point. A previous caller mentioned something very important that you guys completely brushed over, and that's something that was slipped into the 2012 NDAA. It was the rescinding of the Smith-Mundt Act. And what this has done is open the floodgates for the media to basically lie to us if it's in the best interest of the government. So what we're witnessing here is the deep state aligned with media, and they have a free pass. We're a lot of questionable things happening in this country. We got mass shootings. I'm sorry to say these things are questionable. And under this law, the rescinding of the Smith-Mundt Act, in reality, the government could be working with media to deceive us, and it's legal. Talk about the rescinding of the Smith-Mundt Act, please.
Dan, we'll let you go there. Dan in Massachusetts. Eleanor Clift, any thoughts on what you heard?
I think that sounds to be like a conspiracy theory that's alive and well. I'm not going to comment on it.
Cheryl Chumley?
I'm not familiar with that particular act, but I will say that back in the 1950s, there was that whole Operation Mockingbird thing, which was never formally confirmed by the CIA. But of course, that was the operation where CIA operatives worked with U.S. media to shape the messages that came out of the media, and it was purportedly supposed to have hit at hundreds of journalists and reporters. And that's something that has been reported and used in different terms.
What was the message that they were trying to get across in this?
It varied. It went on for years, right. And it wasn't just domestic, but it was also to slant and shape how government officials worked with foreign officials as well. But don't take my word for it. Look it up.
Well, we have aspects of the government, the USIA and Voice of America, that transmit American values abroad.
I only bring it up because you say conspiracy theorist as if it's ridiculous.
Like. Well,
but at the same time,
he was tying mass shootings with the media and government interference to to fool the American people.
Right, and
which
you were
sounds to me
dismissing
like a lot
theories
of
as
connecting of
conspiracy
dots.
theories as if they're ridiculous, but there are some things that our government has been involved in, including our deep state type government officials that have been recorded in history and proven.
Well, we have a
So
moment or
it
two. Let's
happens.
get
And therefore, that gives credence to what you
let's
say
wrap up
about
with a
the deep
caller or
state.
two here.
Okay.
Let's
It doesn't
get
give credence, but
Eddie
it means
in
he
Millbury,
shouldn't be just
Massachusetts.
randomly dismissed.
Let's get one more.
We all know that you can't believe everything you read, but at the same time, most journalists do try their level best to get the facts straight. It requires checking and, wherever possible, a first-hand account of what's happening. But an eyewitness account is not always possible, particularly in nasty wars on the other side of the world. And so reporters sometimes have to rely on other people's accounts. The story then becomes as good as its source, and sources sometimes lie. The U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, deals in information and misinformation. Tonight we see how the CIA has been able to plant news reports that aren't just inaccurate, but totally fabricated. This is Angola, a former Portuguese colony in southwest Africa that's been at war since the mid-70s. Its left-wing government, supported by Cuban soldiers, fights a continual battle against guerrillas backed by South Africa. 10 years ago, the Soviets helped send guns and troops here, and the United States responded with support for the guerrillas. According to newspapers at the time, that's how the Angolan War started. But did it? John Stockwell, wearing the cross, worked for the CIA for 12 years. As a colonel, his last assignment was to run the U.S. campaign in Angola.
The basic theme was to make it look like a Russian and Cuban aggression in Angola. And so any kind of story that you could write and get into the media anywhere that pushed that line, you did. 1/3 of my staff in this task force was covert action, was propagandists whose professional career jobs was making up stories and finding ways to get them into the press.
In 1975, the resource-rich African country was being fought over by 3 factions. Agostinho Neto led the left-wing MPLA, which eventually became the government. Jonas Savimbi, an anti-Marxist, led UNITA, which was openly supported by South Africa. And another anti-communist force was led by Holden Roberto, who had been paid by the CIA for 14 years and was now to receive major U.S. support.
The CIA had just closed down 3 long-term paramilitary operations in Southeast Asia. The Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. They'd had over 1,000 paramilitary case officers come flocking back to Washington. They didn't have desks for everybody, much less jobs, and morale was rock bottom low. They wanted a covert action. They wanted a paramilitary encounter. He had some Cuban soldiers raping some young Angolan girls. Then there was a battle, and he had that Cuban unit cut off and captured. And then he had the Cuban women, the victims, identifying their rapists. And then there was a trial, and they were convicted. And then he had them executed by a firing squad of the women who had supposedly been violated, with photographs of young African women with weapons shooting down these Cubans. There had never been a rape. There had never been the military action. The Cubans had never been captured. It was all fiction.
Fiction, maybe, but it showed up on the front page of papers like the Toronto Star. The Toronto Globe and Mail also ran the story, and its headline attributed it to Angolan guerrillas. Many other Canadian newspapers in cities like Winnipeg, Montreal, and Halifax picked up the story.
Basically, and to put it very crudely, you can publish any old crap you like.
The Senate's torture report. It might be the purest example of red news, blue news that we have ever had on this show. On the left, the revelations about CIA interrogations of prisoners were a horrific confirmation of people's worst fears, that our nation lost its mind and some of its collective morality in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. On the left, the report was a much-needed document. On the right, it was partisan. It was treated like a Democratic attempt to shame the Bush administration or even distract from more timely issues.
The United States of America is awesome. We are awesome. But we've had this discussion. We've closed the book on it and we've stopped doing it. And the reason they want to have this discussion is not to show how awesome we are. This administration wants to have this discussion to show us how we're not awesome.
The U.S. is awesome in a lot of ways, and it is also, at the same time, not entirely awesome. Obviously, both things are true. So let's go over to the Blue News now, because MSNBC's Rachel Maddow most definitely did not think the U.S. treatment of prisoners was awesome.
We knew before today that the United States, specifically the CIA, had tortured people after 9/11. What we did not know before today was exactly how they did some of it, and exactly how much of it they did, and how much they tried to conceal it while they were doing it and after. But the other thing we didn't know, which I'm not sure anybody knew to expect before today, the other thing we didn't know is just what a mess they were as they tried to invent this program out of whole cloth.
So she's saying lots of news came from the report. Now, this is the thing about Red News, Blue News. You'd probably never hear what Maddow said over on Fox, and you would never hear what Tantero said over on MSNBC, except if they played a clip and made fun of her. So let's not talk about the Red News, Blue News noise of this, but instead talk about the facts, about what the media has reported through the years about the CIA's practices. Because the Senate report this week makes it pretty clear that the CIA funneled information to journalists. Info about the interrogation program. Info that was false. The CIA, of course, disputes that conclusion. So joining me now to try to get to some of the truth here are guests on both sides of the journalist-source relationship. Bill Harlow, who was a CIA spokesman and who coordinated some of the pushback against the Senate report this week. And Michael Isikoff, the famous investigative correspondent, most recently of NBC News, now at Yahoo. Thank you both for being here.
Good to be with you, Brian.
Likewise.
Bill, is there such a thing as a sanctioned leak from the CIA where the agency puts out positive information? Because one of the takeaways from the Senate report this week is that there were times where the CIA would leak information that made the interrogation program look favorable.
Well, I think the word leak is a pejorative right there. When reporters like Michael would call me up and ask questions about things that were happening at the agency, and I would respond to it, he wouldn't look at it as a leak. A leak to a reporter is something that some other reporter got. So no, I mean, the job of the agency spokesman is to provide information as best they can on an unclassified basis to reporters, and that's what they did.
Michael, I see you smiling. Have you been on the receiving end of some of this?
Well, I've certainly been on the receiving end of information from Bill and a lot of others at the CIA. I think, look, one of the disturbing things about the report is clearly there's a political red-blue food fight over what the conclusions of the report were. But the real merit or advantage of the report is it quotes voluminously from internal CIA cables, internal CIA emails that shed a lot of light on this program that we've been talking about for years with limited information, and it gives us a much fuller picture, and it tells us a lot of things that, frankly, Bill and others at the CIA public affairs shop were not saying about the program.
Bill, does the CIA in the future need to be a little less secretive with journalists? Does it need to do an even better job, perhaps, communicating its message, its point of view to journalists?
Surely, you know, and I recognize when I was there that I had one of the strangest jobs in America.
I bet.
You know, the chief spokesman for a secret organization.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's, you know, an oxymoron right in itself. And it was always a struggle to try to provide information to the media while protecting necessary secrets. And that's a very difficult job to do. And whoever has it now really has a you know, a difficult job ahead of them. But that said, there still is a requirement to protect necessary secrets. And while we may be debating this now, if people were to put out information which caused damage to national security, we'd be having an entirely different discussion.